Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your first session of many at this year's RISE conference. I am Sarah Sherman, I'm one of the Code Fellows and I will be your chair today. We've got two sessions in this slot. We've got my colleagues behind who are about to start. We're going to give them the full half hour, including questions, and then we'll move on to the second paper. So I would like to introduce to you Sian from Instructure and Richard from the University of London. He's not come far at all.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our session. So as Sarah just mentioned, my name is Sian Wilson. I'm Senior Account Executive for UK and Ireland at Instructure, the makers of Canvas. I've had the real privilege of working with Richard and the wider University of London team as they've been shaping their vision for the global digital campus. And it's been really impressive to see how you've translated a very complex vision into something that's a real tangible future for lifelong learners. And Richard will go on to tell you this himself, I think, but the University of London have been a real pioneer for distance education for a long, long time. But what's really exciting about this next chapter is how they're reimagining that heritage for a world where learning needs to be really flexible, borderless, and lifelong. So together, we've been exploring how technologies such as Canvas LMS and Parchment Digitary Services can support that vision, and helping learners access education from anywhere, recognise their achievements along the way, and securely share those credentials wherever life and work may take them. And what I've also found really impressive working with Richard and the team is it hasn't just been about adopting new tools, but about asking bigger questions. How do we remove barriers to education? How do we recognise learning throughout a career, not just at the end of a degree? And how do we make lifelong learning truly accessible on a global scale? So Richard has been leading much of this work, and today he's going to share the journey, where they are today, key lessons, and how they use digital platforms and credentials to drive lifelong learning. So please welcome Richard.
See the slides without constantly turning around as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm Richard Michel, I'm the Chief Information Digital Officer for the University of London. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is why lifelong learning matters now. I think in the sector you'll all be more aware than me that lifelong learning has been a topic of discussion for a long time. This isn't about the lifelong learning entitlement, which is just a mechanism for financial changes to the sector. This is about the concept of lifelong learning and how we can actually support that in the international context within which we work and have done for some time at the University of London. But what's changed in terms of this space? So we have rapid technological change. We talked a little bit about AI in the keynote session this morning. It's reshaping the way the job market operates. We need to look at how we span working lives. I mean, this has been going for some time now, but we have to adapt to those changing labour markets and the changing nature of careers. So we think a lot about adult education dipping back into learning later on in life. And there is this view that, and particularly this came through in COVID times, that some learners actually adapted much better those online environments more than the traditional campus environments. So we need to make sure we are providing the opportunity for that mixed model going forward. So and recently there was a government paper that actually looked at how we move towards this modular, career-long, multi-provider credit accumulation delivery model. So I think most of you will know that the University of London, I work for the core of the University of London, but it is a federation of 17 higher education institutions. And you'll see the logos here of our federation partners. But we have a long a long heritage in distance and international education. And that has been about delivering flexible, modular approaches to learning where you could step on, step off, not your traditional 3 years. But that has been challenging to deliver in your traditional degree environment. We have a diverse global learner base and that spans all ages and backgrounds. And there's a mix of them studying independently or through teaching centres internationally or on campus here in Senate House. One of the benefits of the Federation is that we have a common credit framework, and that allows us to do some things that other institutions can't do for lifelong learning at the moment, and that is share that credit framework, and that's what we're building on to start our journey towards this lifelong learning. I will say that the other thing that we are here for is collaboration. So this opportunity for us to actually collaborate, not just across our federation, but across the sector where possible. So what was our plan here? As I said, I'm in charge of technology and digital here, so I've worked with many colleagues across the university in terms of the concept of the academic content and the approach to lifelong learning. And what we've actually launched yesterday, so I don't know if you'll have seen it on LinkedIn, but we launched our new micro-credentials for lifelong learning, starting with a number of modules from our partner, City St George's University of London. And some of the key features of this approach is that students can start anytime, no application windows, intakes, or terms. So it means that it works at the pace of the learner. So they can come, they can search for a course that they want to take, they can find it, immediately pay for it, and then immediately start taking that course in the Canvas learning environment. So there are requirements that we spell out for the student, but it's actually up to the student to self-certify against those entry requirements. So no complex application forms. Now, we see this as really streamlining the student experience and actually helping them to get from that when they want to study straight into that study environment. The other piece of this is taking assessments when the learner is ready to take assessments. Now, clearly, that's not self-paced. There's self-paced journey all the way up to assessments, but then at the assessment stage, it then goes through the academic quality assurance process. But we're also streamlining that activity by having more frequent assessment boards and quicker responses and integrations with the systems to get those results back to the learner quickly. There is some use of AI through the technology. So it is a complex technology environment. As we said, Canvas is an instructor of partners within that ecosystem, but it's quite a lot of integrated, complex technological solutions to make it appear as streamlined as it is. And obviously integration is key to that. But we've embedded AI through that where possible. So, some areas like being able to initially search for, I want to study data science, and it actually helps you find which modules might give you those skills. We've used AI to actually determine the skills that you actually do achieve through each of the learning module. And as I said, we start with City St George's, but we'll be building more modules as we go forward with some of our other federation partners as well. So it is skills focused and it has that practical competency-based assessment. And we've also looked at that employability skills. So our careers group, most of you will know our careers group, have really helped to identify the badging potential of skills within this. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. And one of the key goals here is not just taking a module, or that can be an output in itself, but it is about using those modules to actually build towards larger qualifications in the future. So what we're calling the platform is the Global Digital Campus. So on this platform, we start with lifelong learning modules, as we said. We do have a plan for the future to build towards the potential to deliver degree programs through the digital campus. But it's designed to enable the support for all stages of the student journey. So that will be seamless, the digital enrollment, as I said, access as, once you browse, pay, register, start, and then you start learning immediately. And then you can actually build your own pathway through that flexible learning, self-paced. And what we're talking about here is that future to personalize across educational institutions. So although we start with City St George's, our goal is that ultimately you can actually populate your own learning journey with modules from different institutions. And that's part of the stackability that we're implementing within the platform. So why Canvas? Some of you may be Canvas users. We were traditionally a Moodle university. Many Moodle instances, I will say. Jonathan's in the room, so I'll be careful what I say about that. And that's served us well. But we stepped back and said, what do we want to achieve from the learning environment? And clearly, there are some technical reasons for doing that, moving towards a SaaS-based solution, so it's more accessible, more manageable from a technology perspective. But there are some features, some capabilities that we really liked about the Canvas solutions as well. So working with Instructure, we looked at the use of a modern user experience. That's really important with global learners, consistency of the user interface. Things like when we actually launched this a few weeks ago, we were actually in a public forum, and one of my team actually pulled out her phone and went, I'm really excited. We've just sort of gone on the SaaS solution today, and showed me on her mobile phone. And it's amazing that adaptability, things that as a technologist for a long time, having to think about mobile responsive and all those things, none of that has to be done anymore because the platform itself builds those capabilities in by default. One of the really interesting things we like about it is this ecosystem about integration. So as I mentioned, it's a complex technology environment that wraps around the learning environment. So everything has to integrate very seamlessly. So from that learning journey when you choose and pay through to taking the course, all that becomes seamless because of the Canvas integrations. And at the other end, through the learning journey, integrating out to other tool sets, library resources, all of that happens within that platform of the Canvas ecosystem. And as I mentioned, embedded employability skills, where we've used AI role plays and simulations and translation options to support the learners through that learning journey. So at the other end of the process, so there's many elements to this. I'm not going through all of the ecosystem, but the other side of the process is about credentialing. And this is where we chose the Instructure Digitry solution to assist the university on a broader scale with streamlining our credentialing platform. Some of you will have had that experience of how long it takes to actually certificate out at the end of a process. And so we're really looking at how to use the parchment solution, which is what it's now called, to actually provide access to credentials in a much more streamlined way. The solution is actually about secure digital credentials. So it's really important for us to be able to provide that opportunity for learners to see their results quickly on a platform like Digitry. They get instant access to verifiable online certificates and transcripts. And one of the key features is how shareable they are for employers and regulators. So that ability for a student to choose to share their results with someone such as the Home Office for visa requirements or a future employer. And that's all available for the student to decide to provide online. Also opportunities for us to provide alumni with access to transcripts from when they've lost their certificate, they're able to come and look at that. So some huge benefits in terms of the platform here, and also the process for access to results in a quicker way. So what's next for the Global Digital Campus? So as I said, these are modular, stackable market credentials that will build towards a larger qualification. So we see the potential here for a really great opportunity for personalized learning pathways. And at the moment, this is lifelong learning through the online solution. As a federation, we've been talking to the partners about the opportunity to actually take that to a front end to an application for an on-campus activity, or perhaps a hybrid learning solution through a teaching centre somewhere around the world in one of our partners. So through this, we reflect back on what the University of London's remit is, and it has always been about accessibility, so providing access to education in that global environment. And we see this as one of the next steps towards providing that access in a streamlined way across online and on campus. One of the futures that we're also looking at, I mentioned about Digitry and the potential with that solution. What the Parchment solution also does is provides credentialing from the perspective of badging all the way up to the full certification. So that's one of the areas we are looking at with the introduction of the micro-credentials. Are there opportunities for us to actually put digital badges associated with those for learners to then be able to present those automatically onto sites like LinkedIn and so forth. So it becomes part of almost a staged credentialing process for students in the future. And that supports learners in their opportunities for learning across their entire careers. And that, I don't know how long I actually talked about. Actually, that is all the slides I have, but happy to take any questions, have a conversation about life.